Christopher Columbus, 1942, hits islands of North America. This sets up a series of events which were part of the Age of Discovery. He wanted to sail west to reach the lands of the Great Khan, trying to find a new route to the East's gold and spice. Portugal wouldn't finance his adventure, so he turned to the French monarchs, Isabella and Ferdinand of Aragon, who agreed to finance his adventures, believing that the risk of ruin cost was a low percentage because Columbus agreed that Castilian sovereignty would be claimed over the new land and inhabitants, and the crown would receive a share of the profits. Therefore, the inhabitants were to be proselytized to Christianity. These events would result in the Columbian Exchange, where Europe declared control over vast new land, in that case bringing in new diseases to the Americas, which decimated the population in the Caribbean and caused Portugal to look to Africa for slaves. This resulted in the Atlantic slave trade. They also took back new crops such as corn, potato, tobacco, coffee, and cocoa, along with gold and silver from discovered mines, developing a consumer lifestyle back to Europe. Martin Luther had previously planned to study law, but during a crisis of faith he promised that if God revealed himself, he would study religion. During the Reformation period, where thinkers were reforming their ideas of religion and society, he also launches a new critique of the Catholic Church in his 95 Theses in 1517. It's a critique of the Church doctrine and practices during the Habsburg dynasty. Mainly its authority to sell indulgences, and felt that it was a corrupt process as people could buy their salvation, and argued for the priesthood of all believers. He believed that the Eucharist were both naturally bread and wine, while also the body and blood of Christ. Zwingli disagreed. This rose strong debate as it challenged the role of the priest and the church in the relationship between God and believer. Luther didn't believe that works equaled salvation and believed that nobody was worthy of salvation. Rather, salvation came by faith alone, which could primarily be learned through Scripture alone. He was spurred on because Luther didn't feel saved. This was supposed to be an academic debate. Luther's ideas spread throughout the Holy Roman Empire by means of the printing press. He defended his faith at the Diet of Worms in front of Charles V, and that fracturing the unity of Western Christianity, starting the Protestant movement, but soon even Calvinism would appear, as John Calvin believed the doctrine of predestination. Luther's lord of the land was Frederick the Wise, and Charles V had to respect Frederick because Charles had bribed Frederick to become the Holy Roman Emperor. Luther's papers spread to Germany and German towns and villages, and again aided by the printing press, and began to spread Protestantism via the Protestant Reformation, forming Anabaptists believing in adult baptism and rebaptism, and Calvinists. Some took Luther's idea of freedom to mean political freedom and started the Peasants' War. Luther objected to this, saying that God ordained rulers and even tyrants therefore must obey him. The printing press. Movable type print developed in Europe in the 1400s by Johannes Gutenberg, a German goldsmith. Previous method of copy was hand stamping pages with individual wood carved blocks. Chinese actually invented the movable type printing but preferred the woodblock printing, as the Chinese written language had thousands of different characters. However, in Europe, with only 26 letters, movable type print allowed entire manuscripts to be printed more quickly than before. Single letters were made into metal molds, emptied into a frame, and new ones inserted to print the next page. In 1467, the first printing press established in Rome, and 5 years had produced 12,000 volumes. This demand of printing called for larger production of paper. Paper making came to Europe from China via Arab industries.